Welcome to the Messy Middle podcast and radio show presented by Mother and Founder Co. Each month, guests are invited to share their version of the messy middle and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're in the messiness of growing a business, healing from trauma, or navigating the wild world of parenting, this show is a must. We are excited to celebrate the messiness of life and business with you. And now, let's settle in as host Jen Burwell connects us with today's guests.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of The Messy Middle. I am so honored to have two incredible guests today, Jessica Fritz, the owner and architect of J.Cor Architecture, and Stephanie Greenfield, associate broker and team lead of the Bray team at Berkshire Hathaway. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks.
Hi. I'm so happy to have you guys. So you two haven't met other than today, and I'm so excited to bring you together because I'm just so curious about both of your careers and your past, and I think you guys will enjoy each other's company. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I always like to open the show with just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you come from? How did you grow up? Those sorts of things. So let's see. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay, good, Jessica.
So I'm from a place called Berkshire County, Massachusetts. Really, really rural, small town. I think the population of my town's like 1,600 people.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah. I guess for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be an architect. I think when you're in high school, you don't really know why. I don't know. But I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I ended up going to Boston for college, which was a huge change from the small town life going to the big city. It was like really crazy for me, but a really amazing experience. I guess a couple years into college, my mom and my stepdad ended up moving out here to Phoenix, Arizona. So I debated coming out here. Actually, my last year in school, I had apartment all set up with my friends, and I was like, I'm not moving, I'm staying here. And maybe 2 months before graduation, I was like, no, I gotta go. I gotta go out to the West Coast. So that was kind of a crazy time. I think my friends were a little frustrated when I bailed on the lease. But I came out here, and I've been out here ever since. I did spend 6 years in California, Southern California, which was a wonderful experience. But other than that, it's been Phoenix. I love it here.
Yeah. We can't beat the weather right now, right? It's
Yes.
like so amazing. I just hope it lasts for a couple more months before the dog days of summer. But so my father is from Massachusetts. He grew up in Halifax and Whitman.
Okay.
Is that anywhere close to where you were?
I was in the middle of nowhere. No, I think Halifax is definitely closer to Boston.
Yeah, it's like I think a suburb. I always
Yeah.
imagine it south, but
South of Boston.
I'm
I'm
not
not
really
100% sure. Anything about 30 minutes from Boston is considered Massachusetts. So I was 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
So
that is far. Like on the western part of the
Yes.
state? Okay.
Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Stephanie, how about you?
I am one of the few found Phoenix natives, actually. So I was born and raised here, and I never really wanted to go anywhere else, actually. I went to high school here, and I applied for a bunch of colleges, but I ended up going to Arizona State. And it's actually funny. One of the colleges I was considering was going to Harvard. That was like a dream I had from being a little kid. And I think being the eldest of 4 kids, I don't think my parents were ready for that, for me to go across the country. So they took me to see Harvard in January in Boston. And being a, little desert kid, I was like, this is not for me.
They planned that out perfectly.
They did. I think they really did. So anyway, I ended up going to Arizona State. I absolutely loved it. I did marketing and management there. After that, I moved to LA. So similar to Jessica, I lived there for a couple of years where I did consulting. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do when I left college. And I applied for all kinds of jobs, like everything you can think of I applied for. And I landed on consulting, and I thought, well, this will be cool because I'll see, a bunch of different industries from my one job.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that will allow me to learn what I want to do going forward. It was a really amazing 2 years with some of the most brutal work I've ever done. 80 hours just like week after week after week.
Wow.
And I was 24 years old, and I ended up getting an ocular migraine. And I just couldn't see anything anymore all of a sudden. Went to the hospital emergency room. They're like, you need to stop looking at a computer for so long straight, without stopping. And I thought in that moment, I just think that I need to work for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm killing myself working for somebody else's dreams. And that was kind of a big wake-up call for me. And I put the plans in motion at that point to start coming back to Phoenix. When I did, I joined my mom's real estate company. She has been a realtor for 46 years. So
Wow.
I was the kid that always said, no, I'm not doing what my parents do. No, why would I do that? But then, I found myself as soon as I came back to Arizona, and it's been amazing ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm also a native, second generation. So my mom's whole side of her family has been here, and it's been amazing to watch the growth
Right.
in the state. And I'm with you. So my sister went to pharmacy school, and her dream was to get out of Arizona. So we were kind of like the opposites. I had a period in high school. I think it was just like that, I don't know, like emo period of my high school where I hated everything. But I was like, this state is so, I don't like it. I want to leave, all the things. But I went to ASU as well. And then I just fell in love with the state. But my sister, she had dreams of going to Harvard. And my parents took her in January or February as well. And it was so cold and snowy. And she decided that what she wanted to do was be a pharmacist. So she ended up going to Massachusetts pharmacology, I don't know, something in Massachusetts. So she moved out there, and now she lives in New Hampshire with her husband. And we can never get her home. She's never coming back. She just is, fully ingrained. Her husband was from Rhode Island originally and had never left Rhode Island in his, 40 plus years. And so there was no way we were getting him out here. And now she has 2 kids and my kids. And so we're always trying to figure out how to see each other. So my rules are I will come in the summer.
Right.
And then her rules are I'll come in the winter. So we kind of switch. But that's so funny that you guys have that connection.
Yeah.
And then living in California. So, Jessica, I'm so curious because I've always wanted to be you. I've always wanted to be the person who knew from a young age what I wanted to be. And you mentioned you knew you wanted to be an architect in high school, but you didn't really know why. So can you talk about what were the underlying motivators? What interests you? And then how did you know that this was the path for you?
Well, like I said, in high school, it's so hard to tell what you want to do because you haven't really done anything, right? I remember thinking, so my dad was a mechanical engineer, and I loved math, I loved physics, and I thought really hard about becoming an engineer, but kind of like you said, I don't want to have the same job as one of my parents. And on the other side of that, I had a really amazing ability to draw ever since I was really, really young. And my grandfather was an artist. And I think it had to be something I inherited from him because I remember being on a car ride to my aunt and uncle's really young. I had to have been 8 or 9 years old. And I had a coloring book and I had a stack of paper and I just drew the front of this coloring book. And even I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it looks really good. Just weird. And I never jumped into drawing. It wasn't something that I was I'm going to be an artist from now on. I grew up horseback riding and I really just wanted to be a horse trainer most of growing up. And that's what I wanted to do forever. But my parents very much were like, okay, you can't be a horse trainer. You need to go to school, get a degree. So I think between the drawing and the math background, I was like, well, maybe I'd be good at being an architect. I also really loved houses when I was young. So I had a friend whose parents built their own house and I would get my parents, my family, be like, we're taking the bikes, we're riding up to see this house. And again, I was maybe like 12 or 13 years old. So pretty young. And whenever my parents moved, they'd go look at houses when we were at school. And I would get so angry because I wanted to go look at the houses. Like, it's just funny. So I think all of those things, I was like, maybe this would be a good path for me. Once I got to college, architecture school is really awesome. It's a ton of work. And I, growing up on a farm with horses, I was used to hard work. I worked a ton. I had a job all through high school. So the hard work wasn't a big deal for me. But I just remember sitting in these lecture halls and history lectures of famous buildings and famous architects. And I mean, it was just like awe-inspiring, to be in there. And it just like made me feel just excited to be there. And unfortunately, actually working is not like that all the time. So the real world's a little bit different, but definitely when I was in college, I was like, man, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. And I definitely felt like I was on the right path then. I've questioned it for sure, actually working in the industry. And I think obviously the same thing you're talking about, burnout, happens when you're working for somebody else and employers really push you, you're grinding. And I think the amount that we're expected to work these days is overwhelming. So that definitely made me question it. I didn't feel like I had a life outside of work. And so starting my company has definitely been, I definitely feel more now like I'm doing what I'm meant to do, more so than when I was in the daily grind of it.
That's awesome. So I went to school originally for architecture. Well, no, originally for justice studies because I thought I was going to be an FBI serial killer profiler.
Ooh.
Then I went to like a career day and they were like, yeah, there's 2 people in the country that do that. Everyone else, like if you're an FBI agent, there's a lot of paperwork, more like real life is like paperwork and not this like who did it, crime solving. So I switched my major to architecture. I am not a science or math person. And I was like, I don't know about this. This is a little tricky for me. And I'm afraid buildings might fall down. But I had this passion for design. So I switched to interior design. And that's what I ended up getting my degree in. So I worked for a high-end residential interior designer for the first 5 years of my professional career. And it was so incredible. I met so many amazing people. I got to work on amazing products. We were published, or projects. We were published in magazines. It was so cool. But I was also young, in my mid to early 20s, working 80 hours a week. My boss was a business owner, and a small business owner, and she had a work ethic like I have never seen. So she taught me a lot, but her model was, if I'm working, you're working. So it'd be a Friday night at 11:30 at night. I'm not joking. And we were expected to be next to her working, pulling designs, doing all this stuff. And as a 20-something or as an any-something at 11:30 on a Friday night, so I quickly decided, this wasn't for me. And it got to the point, my burnout level got to the point where I was like, this isn't the right field for me. And so I quit my job. And then I went to work for a nonprofit for 5 to 6 years, which was amazing. But it was like that burnout piece, like I totally made me turn and switch directions from a career that I really enjoy. And I still to this day love design and express it in different ways. But it was, as a young 20-something, I wish that that's what they would teach in college, is like how to manage that. Because we all have these experiences of our first jobs and, we're just working. So
right. I think they more so need to teach the business owners how to run a healthy business.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that an amazing concept? And that was what I was going to ask is, so you guys both decided to go on to work for yourself. I recently started Mother and Founder. We're a little less than a year old. And I find myself back in the situation of like, oh, I'm working 60 or 70 hours this week, or, and I'm like, who am I going to get mad at? Like, it's me. Like, I'm the one who booked over my vacation, which that's a real story. I booked over my vacation because I forgot, didn't put on my calendar, scheduled workshops. And then I'm telling my family, hey guys, we can't go because I have this work thing and it's my fault. So my question for you guys is, how do you, as a business owner, find that balance and not kill yourself, but also as you grow, not do the same thing that we experienced as employees? share all your wisdom. I need it all. Stephanie, what do you have?
I think it's so interesting to think about that, because I know that as much as I did work and get burned out in the consulting world, now I still work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, but it doesn't feel to me like it used to feel. I know that now I'm building something that's my legacy, and it's something that gives me a lot of joy. And I've stopped kind of believing in such a thing as work-life balance. For me, my clients are my friends, my clients are my family, and it's all just work and it's all just life, And so I am a crazy workaholic, admittedly, and so I do have to take time sometimes to step back from that and remember, okay, go to yoga, okay, drink some water, take care of yourself for a minute. But I think when I gave myself permission to not have to feel like there's such a thing as work and there's such a thing as life, it's all just life, the pressure of that got a lot better for me.
That's awesome. I've heard of, that whole work-life balance isn't really a achievable thing for most of us, and it is that work-life integration. Yeah. And that's what I have made my shift as well, thinking about. And I have a similar experience. Is I love all of my clients, and they are also some of them are very close friends. Some of them I want them to be my good friends, and they will be in enough time. Yep. I think for me, the tricky part is when I have other people relying on me, and when my daughter. I have very mixed feelings about this because my daughter's 3. And so she says to her teachers and to other people, my mom's working. My mom's always working. My mom's working. And she's not saying it in a bad way. And part of her, when she does her role playing, she's pretending like she's on her computer, she's working. And part of me is I'm showing her that she could be her own boss, that she could have her own business. But the other part of me is should I be concerned that my whole identity to my daughter is I'm working? And so I'm trying to navigate that right now and just figure out that balance, because I'm also a workaholic and I like it that way. That is what gets me where I am. So I'm just trying to figure out how to integrate my family into this. If they would get on board, then we would just be magical.
For sure. And I mean, that's a struggle for, my husband and I, because he is not necessarily a workaholic. And he has a job that he can leave at work, at the end of the day. Yeah. And so I have to definitely be conscious of that and give him the time, that's not always just talking about real estate or talking about houses and the market and all this stuff,
Absolutely.
I feel like I plan my free time just into my day. Rather than just planning my work time, I try to plan the whole day out so that I do have chunks of time. I've also found that I can't work a straight 8 hours and have the same quality of work throughout the whole time period. I've noticed that I can really be focused for 3 to 4 hours, and then I need to take the break. I need to go to the gym. I need to ride my horses. So this is definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot more. Currently, the people that I have working for me are all 1099s, they're consultants. But I am in the process of hiring and growing the company. And it's difficult to think about because I am working from 7 to 11 at night because I take the time off during the day to do different things, and I work from home sometimes, and it makes that easier. But when you actually have a company of people who are relying on you and who need those set hours, thinking about how to manage all of that is interesting. Because I definitely feel like I'm happy with the balance right now, but that's because I can stop in the middle of the day to take a break, and I can work late at night. So once you have a business and a team and an office of people, I'm not quite as sure how to translate that and make that work. But I think there's a shift now too in how companies handle that 9 to 5. So I know for me specifically, all of my employees have laptops. And they have that ability to work from home as well. And they can kind of come and go as they please. And we have Zoom now. And so if I need to be working at home or they need to be working at home, it's just as easy to jump on a video call. So I think that whole concept of being in an office 9 to 5 is kind of going out the window. And I think that you can think your employees can be a little bit more engaged if you allow them that freedom, because like Stephanie, you were saying, once you are working for yourself and you're making your own hours and you feel like you can find time to do the other things you want to do, you're much more engaged because you feel like it's become part of your life. And I had said that when I left my last company, because they were like, why are you leaving? We're a family here. And, architecture should be your life. And I'm like, well, because I'm forced to be in this 9-to-5 role, it doesn't feel like my life. It feels like a job. And I feel more creative in the evenings. Like that creativity doesn't fit into a 9-to-5. And I don't feel like I'm producing the quality and level of work that I could be if I could be in control of my own schedule. So I don't know.
Good for you, though, for for realizing that so early. I mean, I don't know how long exactly you've had your company, but for realizing that and then being able to kind of let your employees see that you live that way, because it's such a creative business that you have, and you need people to be creative and doing their most passionate work when they are working.
Right.
I think we're at such an interesting time in our history. There's a significant shift in the way that we work, a lot of what the things that you were just saying, Jessica. And I think as a business owners, we get to be in the forefront of that and redefining like what is work. And I think that flexibility, and I always go back to, if you're hiring the right people and they're aligned to your higher purpose, they know what you're trying to achieve, they understand your values. These are adults you're hiring. We should treat everyone like adults. And to give them the flexibility to have that integration is really powerful. And I think that's how we're going to recruit and retain the highest talent, because that's what people are looking for. And I think small business has a unique edge because we can be more nimble and shift, where the larger companies, it's going to take them a long time to get on board. But I'm so curious, Jessica, tell us a little bit about your company, when you started, what you do, all the things.
So I focus on residential architecture. So I pretty much do everything from small scale remodels and additions. Most of that is local here in Phoenix. And then I also do new builds, custom homes, and I have a couple of large home builders where we're doing complete new communities for. It was kind of the whole spectrum, which is interesting. Every client's a little bit different. Every project has to be taken on differently, so it's exciting. It's been about a year and a half that I've been completely full-time. It was a side hustle for a few years before that, for me to just gain momentum, gain clients, gain a little bit of cash flow before going out on my own. That was probably the hardest part, was working full time and doing the side hustle. But I feel like it was necessary for me. I didn't see another way to. I had all the things. I had the mortgage, and I've got dogs, I've got horses. And bills are a real thing.
They definitely are.
Yeah. So it wasn't one of those things where I could just, hang out in my parents' basement and start from scratch. So I think that was probably the saving grace, was starting as a side hustle and building my contacts and my clientele before I went full time. But we had a really great first year. The first year was exciting, and it kind of felt like it's been a lot of mental shifts. So I got to a point where I didn't quite feel like I had enough work coming in to leave my full-time job, but I also couldn't really take on anymore. And I didn't feel like any more was going to come to me. And I felt like I was kind of not in the best mental state, because I'd work all day and then I'd go home at night and have to do the side business. And I was so just kind of depressed about it. I wanted to relax. And I was like, this is such a bad mental state to have when we're focusing on my company. How are you supposed to expect like really good things to come and more work to come if every time you're working on it, you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. So it was really a mental thing for me to decide, okay, I'm just it's time. It's time to do this. I'm going to make the jump. And probably a couple weeks after I did, I had one of my biggest clients come in, and it's just kind of carried, and it's gone that way. And we've had more and more work come in, which is awesome.
So awesome.
Yeah, but I feel like definitely the mental part of it was a huge thing. I have a lot of friends who are thinking about starting their own business and kind of nervous, to leave the full-time job. And it's kind of like, you just have to go all in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go all in and believe in yourself.
Absolutely. There's a saying, I never get them right, but it's about like you have to burn all the boats, right? So you have no escape option. So you don't have an off ramp. And I hear so many times, so many entrepreneurs, myself included, like when you go all in, things and people start to show up and align for you that they wouldn't otherwise, because either you don't have the capacity, you're exhausted because you're doing that double duty. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs who take that route. And as long as you know, like this is a temporary season of life, it's not going to be forever, you can get through it. And then the transition is much smoother rather than just jumping off the cliff with really no safety net or parachute.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, tell us a little bit more about the Bray team.
Okay. So like I was saying, when I came back from LA, my mom had her own small brokerage, real estate brokerage, just her. And I told her, hey, I really want to grow a team and build this into a bigger business. And she said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then we should probably go join a bigger company just to have, more expertise behind us, a great team of people, all that stuff. So we interviewed all over town and we landed at Berkshire Hathaway. So that's the brokerage that we're at now. And this was about almost 5 years ago now.
Wow.
That I started the team. So we have the Bray team. At that point, it was just the two of us still, but just, under a bigger company.
Mm-hmm.
And today there are 7 of us, 7 agents and a full-time assistant transaction manager that we have. So we've grown quite a bit in 5 years.
That's amazing.
And thank you. I like to say I've made like every possible hiring mistake that you could possibly make in those 5 years. And, a lot of good, that's how you learn, right? Is just making mistakes. And I was being a little critical of myself just a couple weeks ago, and a friend said to me, oh, you mean you didn't learn that from the last time you grew a successful real estate team? And it kind of like paused me in my steps for a second, like, oh, that's a good point. Whenever we know better, we do better. And anyway, so we've grown the team quite a bit over the last 5 years. We were the number 6 team in Arizona in the whole company last year. So that was super exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
It was awesome. Cool. Yeah, it was really cool to just be able to experience that with my team. And I feel like I have such a great team right now, people who are so aligned and so driven and have a lot of the same, like you were saying, Jen, like have a lot of the same values and just makes things flow. And when it is running smoothly, it makes all the hard stuff feel so worth it.
Do you have advice on hiring after going through that process?
Yes. Let's take some notes.
One thing that I have implemented is like a mentorship period. So it's almost like a trial period for everybody that I hire on my team. And it's a little bit easier because everybody on my team is an independent contractor. So, they're not necessarily employees, but during the first 6 months, I give them a lot of training, everything that they're expected to do. And then at the end of the 6 months, I just sit back down with all of them and say, hey, is this a good fit for both of us? Like, are you happy here? Am I happy here? And that's made a really big difference. But also realizing at some point that I think when I started, I was trying to say, hey, you should come to my team, hey, how do I do this? What do I do as a new realtor? And I was trying to kind of impress them. But now I've kind of shifted of like, I do know how to run a business. And if you want to learn from me, you could be on my team and here's the expectations. So just kind of having a different value shift, I guess, if that makes sense for what I'm saying, realizing that I bring something to the table that is valuable for people on my team.
I love that concept because I think about that a lot, and I was putting my website together and building all of the things. And at first I was thinking about it from a client standpoint, like I want to gain clients, I have to have this presence. And then I very quickly realized if I want to hire anybody, I need to have, I need to be impressive. But I like that shift you talk about where no, you know how to run the business, you know what you're doing. And people should want to come and work for you and learn from you. And
Right.
Mm-hmm. I almost play with that concept often of thinking about like it's so much of this of business of life is mindset, right? It's what we tell ourselves and the stories inside of ourselves. And so I think about like if you show up differently in the same situation, you can get two very different results. And so I'm always watching myself because I have that same thing of like, especially with new clients or even future employees, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to impress. I have to prove all these things. And my father-in-law, actually, I was having a confidence crisis, I guess you could call it.
Aw.
And so I called my father-in-law, who is one of my trusted advisors, and I said, I think I need to go back to school. I think I need more certifications. Like, I just feel like I'm not giving enough for my clients. And he's like, okay. He listened to me rant for like 30 minutes without even saying very much. And then he's like, all right, I want you to do something for me. I want you to write down all the certifications you do have, the degrees you have, the experience you have, the clients you've worked with. He was like, went through this whole list. And he's like, and I'm not kidding. I need it emailed to me by tomorrow at some time. Like, all right. And so I wrote down this whole list and I was like, wow, like I do know what I'm doing. And so it's this story that we get in our head. And I decided that instead of pursuing new degrees and things, which I'm a learner, so I'm always getting some sort of certification or training or something. But I decided that I was going to show up as the person that paper showed that I should be. And the difference in that subtle shift was huge. And so for Stephanie, for you to make that shift and realization of like, no, I do have a lot to offer. And if you want to come along, great. It's just always so interesting. And it can happen multiple times in a day, depending on the room you're in, right? And so, but I'm always playing with, I'm like, oh, there I am again with my little confidence crisis. Let's see how we can flip the script on it. But it's shocking to me. I do a lot of mindset work with my own clients. And the amount of mindset work I have to do with myself, I'm like, it's so much easier to give advice than it is to take advice necessarily. But So I have a real estate question for both of you, because you both are in a real estate type of industries. How do clients typically work with each of you? So what I'm asking is, what is the interplay between architect and realtor, and how does that work? Or do you guys work together? Like, are there cases where that does work? Maybe custom homes? Does this question make any sense?
No, I think it does. Honestly, I haven't worked with many realtors. I have builder clients that the realtors work with. So like I have a client that's a custom home builder, and they will come to me and say, okay, we have a lot. We're going to build a house on it. The first step, though, is we want to design a house for the lot. And then they work with the realtors and they'll sell that design. They'll sell the lot with the design.
Oh, okay.
Before it's actually been constructed. So I think in today's market, you don't even have to build the house because there's so much need, and you can speak to that more than I can. But so that's been my relationship. I don't think I've worked. I've maybe gotten some referrals of people who maybe just bought a house and wanted to renovate it, but that's about it at this point.
Can I give you my card?
Yeah,
sure. So when I was in my design career, and this was like 2005 maybe. I left right around 2008 when everything went crazy in the real estate market. But so we would have clients who would shop for land, like that was a big thing. And then we would hire an architect, and then we would hire the builder, and we'd work through all of that. But perhaps because of the shortage that we have right now, that's not really the way. Like I don't know if there's land to buy around here. Stephanie,
there's still land. Yeah, there's still land. And I mean, I've worked with a number of architects over the years because a lot of times I get really involved in the process for my buyer clients a lot of times. And so and especially now in this market where you can't always get like the exact perfect house that you want, a lot of people are renovating and doing those types of projects. And so I like to have architects, on my team, or metaphorically speaking, on my team, not employed by the very team, that I can just call up and say, hey, can you come with us during the inspection period of buying the house and give us some ideas on renovating, tell us what that might look like, and just give the client a better idea of what they're kind of getting themselves into before they actually close and buy the house. And then worst case, they find out they can't do anything they wanted. So that's why, I like to have the architects come in during the process just to, so that the clients feel good about it.
That is really important because I have all these ideas for my current house, and I've had a couple like general contractors tell me like, that's not going to be worth the investment because of all the like electrical and plumbing and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, come on, I want a different answer. But everyone keeps telling me the same story.
If you're going to stay in that house forever, then you do whatever makes you happy.
Absolutely. I tell everybody, you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
It's just how much you want to pay for it.
I know, that's a problem. So, Jessica, what do you see like, how do I phrase this question? Have you seen situations where people don't bring in an architect and maybe just hire that GC and then you run into problems? Like, what are the benefits of bringing in an architect to like a remodel project that you do versus just kind of winging it, or not even a GC, maybe just contractors and managing yourself?
You know, I was actually thinking about this today. I was working on new design work for a remodel. I think the biggest issue is that if you're not used to drawing and designing in floor plan or in section, actually doing the drawings, I see a lot of contractors and homeowners that will look around the house and say, well, maybe we could do this here, or maybe we could do that there, or maybe flip this around. There's such a disconnect between what you're imagining in your brain and what you can actually do on paper. Mm-hmm. So I find a lot of times that when you're standing just looking at the house in one dimension, you know, you don't have the bird's eye view of everything, that you can't see the full potential, and things start to get a little piecemealed. And people definitely do it that way. But I have found that even when I'm standing in the house with the homeowner and we're looking at things and they're telling me what I want, and I'm thinking like, well, maybe we could do this or maybe we could do that. And it's much different when I actually sit down and look from a floor plan point of view and start designing and going through. There's a process to it. There's you unlock different secrets and different potential as you're working through that process. And then all of a sudden you have something where you couldn't even imagine that you could do that. But once you've actually sat down and gone through that process, it's like, wow, like there's actually a lot you can do here. And there's a lot of things you didn't realize because it was more difficult to picture in your head.
That's got to bring you such joy of like, the finished product of like, wow, like here's some things that I would have never, like even yourself would have never thought about, but like here's some options that's so satisfying. Like
the before and after.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, you'll correct me if the statistic is wrong, but there's something like some low percentage of real estate agents that stay in the real estate business after 2 or 3 years. Like the attrition rate is high. So how have you stayed as long as you have? How do you avoid that? And how do you help new agents avoid that trap? And also, why is that? That's another question, is why is that attrition rate so high?
I like to tell anybody who will listen, frankly, that the barriers to entry in real estate are very low, especially in Arizona. It takes 90 hours and $400 to get your real estate license. And as soon as you do that, you have every ability to lead or, manage someone through the most expensive, potentially, purchase of their entire life, which is kind of scary if you think about it that way. I think the reason for the attrition rate being what it is there's so many shows, HGTV and $1 million listing and all of those that make real estate look like super sexy. All you have to do is like throw on a great dress and walk into these fabulous houses and boom, you're a jillionaire. It's really not how the business works at all. There's a lot of long hours and it's feast or famine, right? You have to get the business yourself. Nobody's going to just hand you clients that are ready to sign on the dotted line the day you start. So, I mean, for me, the reason that I have stayed in it as long as I have is because I've loved building the business side of it. I kind of compete with myself for like, okay, this year I'm going to do this many sales, or this year I'm going to do this with the team or grow the team this way. So for me, it's partially because I'm competitive, but also they're really, and I feel like this may be a little bit cheesy, but there is really no better feeling than giving somebody the keys to their house. And I have had this great idea for a TikTok in my head that I really need to do. But it's like so many times, I walk into a house with clients, walk in, right? you go to all these different houses with them, and you walk in, then you get under contract and you go to the inspection with them, and you maybe go meet an architect with them, and you're going in and going in and going in every time they're coming out. And the last time not the last time, but the last time in the process that I visit the house with them is when I'm giving them the keys and I leave them there, and
that's a cool concept.
it really is just like a very cool moment. I always try to really embrace that moment when I'm like by myself walking to my car at the end, because it's like, hey, they're in their house now and you're moving on, but like for them, that's home. And that's something I get so much joy out of. And so, yes, it does sound a little bit cheesy, but it's my favorite part of the process every time. So makes it worth it.
It doesn't sound cheesy at all to me. It is.
Thank you.
It is. A real estate is probably the most expensive thing that most people own in their lifetime.
Yep.
It's so impactful. It's where people have all their big things happen.
Totally.
I was just thinking about potentially selling our house, but it's been our house that we've lived in for 10 years. My husband we bought it from his parents actually, and he lived there in high school.
Oh, wow.
But it's where he brought home all three of my babies. It's where like they've took their first steps. It's all the things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have outgrown this house and there's such a special place. So that joy of giving that to somebody and home ownership is such a powerful investment vehicle, wealth building tool that you're able to be a part of. That is not cheesy at all.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it really is. It's a great feeling. And just the other day, I had a colleague who had to make a difficult call. He had to call a tenant and let the tenant know that, hey, the owners are going to be selling the house. So, you need to go find a new home, And he was just telling me, like, this is a really hard phone call to make because if you're renting a house, that could happen to you, like, as soon as your lease is up. If you're month to month, it could happen anytime. And so the security, that people have from owning their home and, like, having that stability, knowing where they're at and where they can make all those memories is really, really neat and powerful.
Absolutely. And I'm sure this similar experience of when you get to see your creations come to real life, that's got to be so thrilling as well.
Yeah, most of the work that I've done has been for builders. So there's a separation, there's a removal separation from actually me meeting any of the homeowners. I don't typically know who the homeowners are. And really just since I've started my company, I have my first original design is under construction right now.
So cool.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to hear you talk about it because I think about that. And my client is actually an investor. So they're planning on putting the house up for sale. So I don't know if I'll get to meet the homeowners, but I'd love to be able to, I'd love to be part of that moment.
You should.
Yeah.
Can you drive by? Do you drive by your projects? I feel like
yeah.
I would be like, look at that.
Yeah. I was actually talking to the contractor the other day and he was like, you really need to stop by. And I was like, I wander around every Friday afternoon. My office is right down the street. You need to stop by. I haven't seen you there.
Yeah, why aren't you there more? That's funny.
So both of you, tell me on your most difficult days, what is the thing that helps you move forward?
Sometimes I have to just have the breakdown.
Yeah. Feelings are for feelings.
Embrace the breakdown.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to. I've noticed, and I've talked to a couple of friends who are, have just left their corporate jobs about this, is you don't realize how much time you have to put aside for yourself to take care of yourself and to do all of the mental and emotional work. I was surprised. I wanted to leave my company and just still go full speed, 9 to 5, barrel through the work. And I found out very quickly how much mental preparation and self-mastery, I guess, that I had to learn. I think for the first couple of months, every morning I had to get up and I had to go walk. And I live up north, so it was pretty much walking into the desert for the first 15 minutes just to get my head on straight. But I think when I get to that point where I'm just, sometimes you have multiple meetings in a row and you're just can't even handle everything that you're feeling. I totally need to plan out time to be able to step away, to have the feelings, move through all of the emotions, and then sit down and look at my, to-do list, map everything out, and then like center myself again.
Yeah.
But I was definitely surprised. It was a big learning moment with starting my own company, was how much time I was going to have to put into like just being on the right page mentally.
I think that surprises a lot of entrepreneurs of how much it takes, because it's all you, right? You don't have that safety net. And if you're not your best version of yourself, you can see that impact in your work. And so, yeah, that's great advice for entrepreneurs in general, or anyone in general, but entrepreneurs especially, because it's like a roller coaster ride. My husband told me like week 2, where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. He was like, look, it's a roller coaster, and you can decide if you want to throw your hands up and scream and enjoy the ride, or if you want to white knuckle it the whole way. But either way, you've decided this ride. So I think about that often. And I'm like, oh, I'm definitely white knuckling it right now, but I really want to be like, woo! But someday I'll get there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you, Steph?
You know, one of the things that I really pride myself on with my business and my clients is trying to take the scariness away from the process and maybe shelter them from the stress of it. Real estate buying and selling can be very messy, and it can be very complicated, and things come up that's crazy. You know, I mean, yesterday I was the day before a closing today, I was putting down contact paper in a house because an appraiser wanted it to be there, you know, and, you know.
That's full service.
It wasn't my most glorious moment, you know, but it had to get done. And so I just went and did it. And while I think that that's a good value proposition, I like to think, at least for my clients, it's still energy that it takes to, you know, take on that stress and just realize, hey, I'm taking this away from them, but it's going to come on me. And just learning my process so, you know, so confidently helps me remember, like, okay, I'm just going to get through this step because I know what's next. You know, even if this is hard, I know the next step. I know the next step in the process. And then, you know, like Jessica said, just even if it's a crazy day, and I did a lot of those putting out fires that day, at the end, if I didn't get everything I needed to get done, if the fires are out, this isn't brain surgery. It'll be here tomorrow, you know. Just come back to it tomorrow after getting some sleep.
Yes. Sleep is amazing.
So, and wine.
Yes. Wine, then sleep. So you made me think, as you were talking, when you're buying and selling, in my experience, personal experience of buying and selling real estate, it's a very intimate process, right? Your realtor gets to know you on a very intimate level. You form this relationship. And it seems like there could be a lot of boundaries crossed, right? So one day you're doing contact paper, the next day, I don't know, maybe you're babysitting their children and driving them to soccer practice. Like, how do you and where do you draw those lines, and how do you balance that of like, here's the boundaries so that you can, like, I totally get like taking some of that stress off, because can be a very stressful process, but also like preserving yourself and knowing like where the line is.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a good question. And a couple of years ago, you know, I was getting really frustrated because I found like this handful of clients that were texting me at 11:30 at night. And I was telling my mom this, like, why do they think that this is okay to text me at night? And she's like, well, are you answering them at 11:30 at night? Yes. She's like, you gave them permission to text you at 11:30 at night. You know, when you answered them, you gave them permission to do that. And so that's something that I have had to be really conscious of, and even change the way that I advertise a little bit to be like, look, I will answer my phone from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. But after that, I'm a human and I need to rest too, you know? And so I've just had to be really like diligent about kind of setting those boundaries for my own mental health. But you're right. I mean, it is really an intimate process. So many of my clients, if they're not my friends before, become my friends. You know, I know where they live. Like, you know, I want to stay in touch with them and see what they do there, and the memories that they make and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
I've noticed that too with homeowners. So I don't work with a ton of them. A lot of my clients, again, are builders. So everybody's, you know, in that kind of corporate world.
Yeah.
But people that are just homeowners that I'm working with, I get texts and phone calls on the weekends and in the evening. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. But I think people are thinking about it after hours a lot of the time too.
Yeah,
so Yeah, I've noticed that you kind of have to set up those boundaries. But for you, that's all of your clients.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, people, I expect that. People don't buy a house while they're at work, right? They buy a house after work. So evenings and weekends are a big, busy time for me. But I just have to, say, okay, like not after 9:30. Nothing. Nobody's accepting your offer after 9:30, all right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then, so I would imagine like nights and weekends, like you just said, are very busy. So then do you shift, like, do you have more time in the beginning of the week, like to do more self-care stuff, or do you just kind of have to flow with?
I've tried to get a little better at that, and time blocking is like a very important thing for me to do that. And kind of like Jessica said, I time block parts in like the mid-morning of the day for myself. Once I've answered the emails from the night before, I've gotten all of that paperwork type of stuff handled, and most people aren't looking at houses in the middle of the day. So I do a lot of yoga in like the middle of the day, because that's the time that I can go and take away for myself. But just I try to more like this work-life balance thing that I don't exactly have. It's not that I get 2 full days off every weekend, right? But I get some hours here and there during the week that I can go and take care of things I need to.
I have a couple of friends who are new entrepreneurs. They left their corporate jobs. It seems to be a thing happening more and more and more lately. But they are really struggling with the friends and the connections that they had before still have these 9-to-5 jobs. And so they're like, well, I have an hour on a Tuesday at 11, and they're struggling to find their community. So how have you both found your community and connections to help support you through growing your business, but also just, to fill your cup personally?
Honestly, I don't feel like I completely have found that. There are a couple of different organizations. Foundress is one that you're part of. Foundress has been great. Arizona Entrepreneurs is another one that I've gone to, but I've noticed that community is kind of its own community. They all seem to be friends with one another, and a lot younger than me too. It's a lot of young, like 20-year-olds, 20 to 28-year-olds, which is great, but it is kind of a process to find your own niche. I have a community of friends that I ride horses with, and that is helpful. And then Foundress, everybody's kind of in that same mindset of owning their own companies, but it's still a little bit different. I guess that's one thing. They say that a lot, that once you become an entrepreneur and you're, running your own business, it can get lonely at times. And it's true. I think it's something you have to adjust to when you're working for a company and you have your group of friends and your friends you go to lunch with, and you're in that community. You definitely give that up a little bit. And I don't know, for you, maybe your clients become some of your friends. Sometimes I have clients that, will be talking about, I don't know, the design of their kitchen and entertaining. And they'll be like, well, I don't know how many friends we have to invite over. And I'm like, I'll come over. I'll be there with a bottle of wine.
Jen, it sounds like we need to bring her into our girls networking group.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say is that's how I met Jen, was through this awesome networking group that one of our mutual friends started. And it's just a group of girls who, most of them are entrepreneurs, and we get together every week and just talk about what's going on, what are you struggling with, how can we help each other, and I think most of us met through a bigger networking group in town, but it's taken me kind of years to pare through that and find like my true people in that group. Now that I have, that group is probably a few hundred women or something, but this new set of new friend group that I developed is 6 or 7 of us, and these girls are like my ride or die. Anytime that there's like a business issue or client issue or work issue or anything, we all just totally have each other's back. And it's kind of like a little group text of cheerleaders, to be honest. But
that's nice.
I think that's what everybody needs in running your own business, is somebody to just be like, hey, when you're having that confidence crisis, hey, you've got this. Don't forget you're amazing. Don't forget all of these things that you're really good at, And so I'll send you the invite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's an amazing group. And, it can be intimidating, just much like the Foundress. Like the first time I went to Foundress, I was like, oh gosh, I'm so scared. I don't know if I belong here, all the things, similar to this other group. But once you come, it's just, you know when you find your people and it just works, and when people are authentic and you can connect with them on so many different levels. And that has been critical to my transition. And I've been to so many different groups where I'm like, this is cool, just not cool for me. And it's so like what we were talking about last month was like that speed dating of the groups. But then once you find the groups, then you find the people inside the groups that really become really supportive. And so I think, oh gosh, we're almost out of time. So I want to ask one important question before we end. What would you say is the most important thing that you've done or learned for your leadership journey? So it could be a book, podcast, quote, anything. Is there one thing that stands out that has really helped you in your leadership or business journey? Not to put you on the spot with a really deep question at the end.
Really, yeah.
Or we could just simplify it. What is your favorite book or podcast of all time?
Go ahead if you know.
I was just going to say, I follow Ed Milet a lot for business. I think he's pretty great. I usually get a lot of really good advice from him. I think that probably the biggest thing I've learned has just been how to kind of be the calm in the storm. And kind of like you were saying with the process, like taking that away from your clients and taking the hard part, absorbing the hard part from your clients and learning how to handle that and be able to relate with people, because you're in the middle of it and you're crazy and you're working and you get a phone call from a client and you have to turn that off and just be like, have a normal conversation and be in a good mood. And so I think that's probably been the biggest thing. But Ed Milet is business, personal, everything. He's really awesome.
Nice.
Cool. Is he podcast or book?
Podcast,
Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, me too.
Very cool.
I think my favorite book of the moment, I guess, is called Breath. It's about teaching yourself how to breathe. And it's so interesting because it's not related to business at all, but it's like totally a mindset thing that how you can calm your body down and like bring yourself back to a still place just by breathing. So that's kind of my favorite book of the moment, I guess.
And that book was written by a deep diver, right? Like a...
I think so. Yeah. That's like the beginning of the book, that they're holding their breath for a long time or something. Yeah.
Like they go down in the ocean and like dive to like really deep depths.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that when people can take something that they do that no one else can really relate to and can write a book like that can help so many people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would argue breathing is very important in business.
Yes, totally.
We forget.
Totally agree. We forget to do it quite often.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Well, I think we are out of time, but I appreciate so much this conversation and for both of you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Messy Middle podcast and radio show, presented by Mother and Founder Co. We hope you have found a few pieces of wisdom to help you navigate your own messy middle. Be sure to subscribe to The Messy Middle on your favorite podcast platform and follow Jen Burwell and Mother and Founder Co. on Instagram. Remember, beginnings are usually scary and endings can sometimes be sad, but it's the middle that counts the most. Until next time, stay curious, kind, and messy.